I'm Gail DePriest, and it's my pleasure today to be podcasting with Michael, who's one of my former students and one of my favorite people ever. So I'm so glad that he could join me today, and I'm going to ask him to tell you a little bit about his organization. He is the CEO and co-founder of his organization. I didn't say that right. It's founder, right?
Co-founder. Yeah, co-founder. No, you're right.
Okay. Okay, and co-founder. And so, Michael, tell us about your company.
Yeah, so I am the co-founder and CEO of TestedHQ. We're an end-user product research company, basically focusing on helping companies develop products more targeted toward their end users and giving them that data during the product development process. So when a product launches, they know there's an immediate product market fit upon launch.
Beautiful. And that it's such a unique field or space that you're in. How did you come to be in that space?
So I spent many years at some of the largest consumer product companies in the world developing products for them and just understanding and becoming an expert on the product development process. Mm-hmm. And through that, I just saw the opportunities to really kind of get the end user involved earlier. So you really were, it was almost thoughtful product development where you were going to kind of taking into account the desires of your end user at the very beginning so that you knew when your product launched and it went to the shelf that you'd have almost an immediate product market fit.
Wow. And how did you get the courage to jump out there and actually start your organization?
Oh, man. It's something I've always wanted to do since I knew what kind of having your own business was in middle school. It's always something I wanted to do, but I never knew the seriousness of it until, I kind of got past college. And a big part of it, I tried starting a company before I ended up getting my MBA at Clemson, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know enough about anything. And so I ended up doing the MBA program at Clemson, and that's what really helped me lay the groundwork, lay the foundation, and get the confidence to have the knowledge to start a company and build a company. And then when I graduated, I wasn't quite ready. I was still scared. I was still afraid of what could happen and stuff like that. So I held off for another year. I went to go work in the corporate world for another year. But then October of 2020, so, mid-pandemic,
yeah.
I had a really great opportunity, and it was either shut down TestedHQ, which I was doing on the side, or, leave my job. And I decided to make the leap. And the rest is history at this point. We're going on 2 years of business and for me full time. And we just hired our 9th employee this past Monday. So we are doing really, really good.
That's phenomenal. So it's going on 2 years since you've been doing it. And I know how passionate you are about this field. And now that you have 9 people working with you, what do you feel like is the most gratifying thing about the work you do?
I think it's the people, and I think it's just being able to connect different people. Especially where we work, we spend a lot of time right now in the power tools, construction spaces. Those are a lot of our customers that we work with, and it's a very corporate environment trying to design products for a very kind of rough and ready environment in the contractors and job sites and the construction sites. And so connecting people that are just from very different backgrounds, very different demographics, and, being that conduit that allows information to pass between the two in order to, for the betterment of the trades, for the betterment of the products being designed is really fun. And then obviously working with all my team and my people is incredibly gratifying. I mean, I love the fact that everybody has different opinions and contributes different ideas to the company, and just seeing the passion on somebody's face when they presented an idea to the company and we're like, let's do it. That's a great idea. Yeah. That working with the people I work with, both on a customer and on a user standpoint, and as well as my people, I think is just the most absolutely gratifying part.
And it sounds like for anyone listening and thinking that they want to be an entrepreneur, you really started as more of an intrapreneur.
For sure. Yeah. I worked in corporate world doing innovation for large companies, for products, for consumer products. Actually started in sales, then moved into product development, then moved into product development, but focused on innovation. And so, I definitely started on that kind of innovation streak, but doing it for a company before I kind of made the leap and became an entrepreneur.
And now you have, and it's been about 2 years. You said that what was most gratifying really was the people and the coming together, and the all of that synergy. What is one of your biggest challenges right now?
I think the biggest challenge is, and it's something that you want to happen early when you have a company, is trying to go really fast, but also trying to slow down. Because when we started the company, it was myself and my co-founder and business partner, Austin Clark. And, we both knew the processes. We knew how to approach customers. We knew the process to get the data for customers and, work with end users and things like that. But, in order to grow, you need people, and you have to divest those, resources from yourself and bring in people to kind of champion certain parts of your organization. And we're both fast thinking people. We like to go. And so doing that, but also taking the time to slow down and, make sure our people know the processes and understand why things are done in a certain way and why, we go about doing things. It's tough. You want to go fast, but you don't want to leave your people behind. And so that's been a lot of the learning, is just making sure, our team is as confident as we are when it comes to selling to customers and completing projects and, doing things. So just making sure you kind of slow down at the right times while keeping everything moving, I say was one of the biggest challenges we faced.
So what I heard you just say is kind of that tactical process and checking those lists while continuing to innovate, which is probably the part that really excites you.
Oh, yeah.
And keeping kind of both of those things going.
For sure. I mean, that's why we kind of fell into the roles. Austin is he's an engineer by trade, so he's very process driven. He likes good, clean processes and keeping everything organized. I'm a creative man. My brain goes a mile a minute. I'm all over the place. I'm throwing new ideas at people. And so, taking that time to consciously and thoughtfully slow down for the benefit of my team and my people, because, people is one of the most important things to me in life, is just being a good steward and a good human in general. So making sure I slow down and making sure my team is prepared to deal with the challenges that we see every day, deal with the projects and, things we have to overcome is something that, I had to really work on teaching myself.
Sure. And, I know how important culture would be to you because of the type of person that you are. So now you have your organization, you're doing the product development, you've got all your clients and you're building relationships there, but then you're creating a culture. And it sounds like you're staying very mindful of what that culture's like.
For sure. That is absolutely crucial to me. I've worked in very high pressure environments, very high pressure corporations where results are everything. And I did not want that to be the experience my employees had. I mean, it is possible in this day and age to have a very fast growing software tech startup, but not, churn and burn through people or, push people too hard. It's possible to have fun and just, I found that when you're openly passionate with your employees and they see how excited you are about what they've done, what we're doing as a company, it's just as much of a motivator as if I was, some stern person saying, hey, we got to do this, just get it done. And I found that it's infectious. I mean, just, once I get talking, it's hard for me to stop, but then it gets my team talking and it gets them contributing. And, we value everybody's opinion equally. When we sit down and do brainstorms about the company, everybody has a say, from our newest employee all the way up to our longest tenured employee, and even Austin and I. And I would not rather have it any other way, because each person in this world, anybody in this world looks at things from a different perspective. And I'm never going to be one to think that I know everything about every little thing. So understanding and seeing things from their perspectives are incredibly important to me. And I think it's incredibly important to the growth of a business.
I'm going to ask you, one of the first things I remember in meeting you is you were very open that you're someone who really takes good care of your health, and you've worked hard to maintain your resilience through challenging times in your life. And I know that will spill into your culture. And I think other cultures are looking at that now too. Things can be stressful after 2 years of COVID. Other things are going on that make people feel stressed. How do you think about resilience when you think about your employees, or any advice?
I think putting things in perspective is really important. I've had a lot of health challenges in my life. One of which I ran into a situation where a doctor told me I was dying at 25. So it was tough. I mean, you don't expect to hear that. And I had to make a lot of life decisions, including basically putting an end to the career I was doing at the time, which was a super fast-tracked career. Ended up losing the relationship I had at a time where I was, shopping for rings for this person to potentially get engaged to this person. And I had to leave Greenville and move to a different city for another job. So everything in my life came crashing down. And I learned a lot about myself in those moments, and just never giving up, as kind of cheesy as it sounds a lot of the ways, is not necessarily never quitting in a sense, but just always believing that, you you got to keep going. You got to keep going. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. You have to, continue to push yourself, continue to find positivity in what you're doing, because as human beings, sometimes, especially, with all the noise that happens in the world, it's very easy to be negative, and it's very easy to have that fear of missing out, that feeling of, being left out. But if you really are deliberate about being positive and looking for the positive, even if it's the smallest little thing, like even if I'm in a pitch with a customer, it's a big customer, and at the end of the pitch, they tell me no. Like they're like, no, we're not interested. Sorry. At the end of the day, I'll still look at that and be like, I feel like I did that pitch really well. Like I feel like I hit my slides really well. I think I was really cohesive in the way I pitched that. Like I really enjoyed the way I pitched it, even though the customer said no, and it's not going to be an opportunity for us. Finding the positivity in that is incredibly impactful and just does so much for your mental health, and really is that driver for resilience. It's just continuing to stay positive when you want to be negative.
I'm really glad you went there, because I was going to ask you about a time that you failed and how did you recover.
Oh, man.
And I'm actually kind of hearing the philosophy of that. But if there was a way that you would share that.
So I think and it's different for me in answering that question, just because I didn't I failed, but like I couldn't control that failure. So, I was very sick. Doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. I went to go see doctor after doctor after doctor, and finally I went to go see a doctor in Atlanta who told me, hey, you're dying, but I can fix you. And I was like, okay, that's awesome to hear. And it was just crazy. In a span of 24 hours, 48 hours, my life just changed. Everything I ate changed. My relationship with my significant other, myself, changed. My career changed. Everything just kind of came crashing down. And it just felt like I wanted to blame myself or blame something that I could have done that prevented it. But it was all out of my control. Everything was out of my control at that point. And it was crazy, because like at that point you can only go up. One of my favorite quotes is from Batman, the Batman Begins trilogy. And it was from Alfred. But it was Alfred talking to Bruce Wayne. He said, Mr. Wayne, what do we do when we fall? And you get back up. Like you just do. I played sports my entire life. I use a lot of sports analogies with my team, but like it's the same thing. Like if you get knocked down in sports, you just get back up and keep fighting. Just because you never know when things are going to turn in your favor. So you just always have to be like, keeping that positivity, keeping that mentality going. And, things will change if you put yourself in the mindset to want them to change for the good.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And so that, it sounds like you learned so much from that period of time in your life, and really, I think it influenced you for the better as you move forward. You went ahead and got your MBA. Fast forward, you're now engaged. You'll be getting married in November, and you've created your own business that you're CEO of. So what a cool pivot that you did. And so, so that must feel really good to kind of look back with this perspective and think about kind of the sort of mindset that you had to. It makes me think of the quote where it's not, 10% is what happened, but 90% is what you did with what happened to you. And
100%.
That's kind of what I'm hearing from your story.
Yeah. Just looking back, I had a moment like that a few nights ago. I just was I was feeling kind of down. I just had a really busy weekend this past weekend, so I didn't get as much time to unwind as I wanted. And so like I had these moments of reflection where I'll just, be sitting on the couch or, doing something after work at the end of the day, and I just think about that point in my life and look at where my life is now. And it's just wild. It's just absolutely wild how literally everything changed. Like everything that could have changed. Yeah. And I can't even like picture what it would have been like if it hadn't changed. Like everything that happened for the good. At the time, I didn't see it that way. Yeah. Oh gosh, no way. I remember because I moved to Nashville for the next career move. And I just remember like, because I lived alone in Nashville in my own apartment, I just remember like sitting on the couch at night and just being so mad at like, felt like everything was falling apart around me. And little did I know like what was coming. And that was that I still use that moment in that time of my life as just something to help me keep my perspective at all times.
How did you make the decision to go for the Clemson MBA?
So I'm gonna give my mom a shout out for this one. That was super. So my parents both, were in the corporate world. My dad still, lives in the corporate world. My mom did it for a long time before my older sister was born, and then she, quit to take care of the three of us. And so as soon as I graduated from undergrad in 2014, they were both just like, because they both have advanced degrees, they're like, so when does grad school start? And I was like,
Wow.
let's put the brakes on that. Like, I want to go make some money. Like, I want to understand what it's like to work in the world before I start grad school. So they kept buying me the GMAT books and over and over, like, hey, let's start applying to grad schools every year. And I just, it's the competitive in me that like I wanted to succeed without feeling like I needed to go get another degree in a lot of sense. And so I was kind of like anti MBA, anti advanced degree for a while, but then I was visiting Greenville from Nashville one weekend, and my mom and I were having breakfast in the kitchen, and she picked up the Greenville Journal, and there was an ad for the MBA program at Clemson, and she's like, hey, because at the time I was trying to start another software business because I've always had this goal to start a business. And she's like, hey, why don't you call them? Like, you're struggling with a lot of like business related stuff that you don't know how to do. Like, this is an entrepreneur MBA. Yeah. This might be really good for you. And so I called up. I was like, okay, fine. Like, I was like, all right, I'll call them. And so I called and I got to hear about the program from I think it was Jamie, one of the admissions ladies, which was awesome. And I was hooked, man. And, and it was great. It was a really great opportunity at that point. And it was applied education, which is, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of applied education. Because I think, sometimes the process of going to college and stuff like that is too like pushed in this world unless it's applied. And that's what I loved about that program. And everything made sense. Everything connected. Every course I could relate back to my business and the building blocks I was putting together. And, once, we graduated, I felt like I had enough there to start a business. Now, I wasn't there yet mentally and personally. Like, I still was dealing with that fear, which was a fun thing to get over once I got over it. But I just felt like I had the tools to build a business, which was awesome because, I didn't just want to go get another degree. I wanted to learn how to start a business, which was fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, I think we always appreciate the fact that you come back to the school and you seek advice. It's almost like you've pulled us in as part of your board. You seek advice depending on what you need advice for. You really have taken advantage of the people that were your professors and cared about you and have cheered you on and watched you. And we just couldn't be more thrilled with what you're doing. I have to ask you, as people are listening to you and going, wow, look what he did. And, even coming back from the brink of something that was kind of bad and then turning everything around and now launching a business well into it for 2 years. What does innovation mean to you? What would you say to someone who wants to be more creative and maybe want to innovate in their current workspace or in another, or start a business?
I think there's a couple things that innovation is a crazy word because working in a very like fast moving corporate product development company, which is where I came from, we use innovation all the time. Anytime we came out with a new tool or release a new product, it was innovative in some way. We always put that word in the box in a lot of times. And I think you got to break it down into kind of two categories of innovation. There's incremental innovation, and there's what I call disruptive innovation in a lot of ways. And so the incremental innovation is improving, like it's improving a product. Like if you worked for a company, let's say a manufacturer, and you saw a process that you thought was inefficient or, and you found a way to improve that, you found to write some software or use AI, like that's, you innovated it, like you made it happen. You made it better. You pushed it forward. Disruptive is just that game changing, the SpaceXs of the world, the Amazons of the world, something that just really moves the needle, that really like just, puts everybody a jump ahead. And then, the world tries to catch up in a lot of ways. So something that's innovative before its time. And I think in terms of finding innovation and finding something to innovate, I think it's the biggest thing I would say is just having an open mind to the world. Like you have to, if you're closed-minded and like, you think this is how the world is and this is it, I think that really is a detriment to being innovative and being creative, especially. Like there's so much I don't understand still. There's so much I'm obsessed with learning about. I feel like every day I find something that I could easily just get down a rabbit hole and just want to look at and think about. But I think innovation is, having that open mind and the way to innovate, because I struggle with it. I mean, even when I was at the TestedHQ didn't present itself as an idea to me until halfway through the MBAE. Like I was stressing. I was like, I had this massive amount of will and this just massive desire to start a business and be an entrepreneur. But I just felt like lost in the sense of I didn't know where the idea was. I didn't feel like I had the idea, and I was just throwing darts at a wall, making things happen until finally it was Joe who sat down with lunch with me and was like, hey, like, what about this? Like, you kind of had the experience doing this. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that. And so,
wow, love it.
Yeah, I think discovering it is gathering other people's perspectives. Like you mentioned, I mean, I still, come to you for advice, Dr. Klein, Joe, like all these people I still talk to because they see things from a different perspective, from different experiences. And that will help you solve problems and move forward and find the things that you want to innovate or understand more about innovation going forward.
I love that you said that because so many times it's there for the asking, but people don't ask, but it's there for you. And the conversations can really help you find it. You touched on this, but I would love to know what you're curious about now, because I know that you're interested in a lot of things.
Yeah. It's so many things. I'm just a curious person. I love diving into the details on things that are incredibly interesting. Things on the list right now, affordable housing, like the future of affordable housing is something. I have a buddy from college who's doing some really innovative stuff that I'm kind of keeping track of and might get in on a little bit. Podcasting, something I'm helping my brother start a podcast, helping my dad start a podcast, and helping him build more of a social media presence for his brand. That's something I'm passionate about. And then also starting my own podcast potentially. And then disc golf. I mean, I love playing disc golf, but I've just recently got into like the mechanics and the biomechanics of it and how to efficiently use the body to throw a piece of plastic and stuff like that. So that's just a short list. I mean, there's a million other things that pique my curiosity throughout the day.
Are you still formulating ideas for your podcast, or is it something you'd want to talk about yet?
I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. I think, for me, and I talked about it earlier, people is so important to me, just people and getting in people's heads. Like what makes people tick? What's their perspectives on curiosity, innovation, product development, just their own personal lives and their own personal mantras. And so right now the title I'm sitting on is called In Their Heads. And I just want to talk to people that are interesting and who are passionate about a certain topic and why they're passionate about it and what drives that passion, what drives that creativity, what drives that hunger, and just kind of going through different things like that, like understanding, what the source of people's creativity is and, how people's like process for creativity changes from an artist to an entrepreneur to, an engineer, and understanding just, how the wonderfully complex and interesting thing that is the human brain works in different scenarios and how we're just all wired differently. It's incredibly interesting to me to have two almost exact conversations with two different people and just get completely different responses. And that's wild. So
that's fascinating. I can't wait to see when you do that. I can't wait. Tell me this, what is maybe the best advice you ever received?
Oh man, a few. I don't know where I got it from. I want to say a couple of them are from my dad for sure. I mean, he's been a role model for me, like with this whole business and starting a career and being a business leader. I don't know if this came from him, but I saw it somewhere. But one of the biggest pieces of advice that I've ever seen in starting being an entrepreneur, pretty sure it's a quote I got from somewhere, is play to your strengths and hide your weaknesses. Yeah. So it's very easy when you start a business and it's your baby and you're an entrepreneur to become obsessed with learning and mastering every single aspect of it. It's possible. I'm not ever going to say anything's impossible because anything is possible in this world. But if you want to grow quickly, you want to grow aggressively, and you want to really, really change the world in an impactful way, you can't try to control everything. You have to bring in people that you trust, people who have a different perspective and look at things who are wired differently than you. And that has been incredibly impactful because, I started TestedHQ and, it is Austin and I's baby, but we start seeing other people add to it, and it's tough sometimes, like letting go of the control and be like, nope, I'm going to let this person run this meeting. I don't need to, be up on this, but it's one of the biggest things. And I think the other one, especially from a sales perspective, and when I first started out, my dad told me, this one was definitely from my dad. He's like, when you think about it, when you're down the dumps, just remember and you're scared to go pitch somebody or sell to someone. He's like, the worst I can tell you is no. That's literally the worst they can do. They're not going to like, tear you up. They're not going to, demean you. They're just going to tell you no. And then you just move on. Like, that's it. And putting that in perspective, especially from a sales perspective, when you're pitching new customers and you're on stage pitching investors and stuff like that, it's a lot less intimidating when you realize no is the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah. So. And there are the times that no is a starting point.
Yeah.
If you know why it's a no, maybe it's not a no 6 months from now, or depending on what else. I'm curious about, as you, I know that you read a lot of things, you look at a lot of things. Is there a book or anything that you're reading right now, or a podcast or something that you would point our listeners to that you...
I've been very much on the documentary kick right now. Okay. I do love several podcasts. How I Built This with Guy Raz is one of my all-time favorites. Okay. Listen to that one a lot. I listen to other couple like more niche podcasts, but love documentaries of people pushing their limits. One of which is super, super impactful it's called 14 Peaks. It's amazing. It's about a Nepalese climber. Well, I mean, we wouldn't even call him a climber. He was a Gurkha, which is a Nepalese soldier in the British Army, and he was British Special Forces. But he decided he was going to climb all 14 8,000 meter peaks, which are, there's only 14 of them in the world, Mount Everest being one of them, in 7 months, when the previous record was 7 years, which is wild. It's like running a marathon. It's like saying you're going to run a marathon in 10 minutes. It's wild. It's, everybody, when he first started trying to raise money to do this, because no one was paying him to do this, he wanted to raise money and like use it to show people that anything is possible. He called it Project Possible because everybody kept calling it impossible. But it's amazing podcast about resilience. It's amazing podcast about pushing your limits. Amazing podcast about putting things in perspective when you feel like all the pieces are going against you. Sorry, not podcast, documentary. That one's really good. Free Solo is an amazing podcast. A lot of them are mountain climbing ones just because that's the current thing. And then book-wise, oh man, there's so many that I've read recently. Cannot remember the one off the top of my head. I'd have to think about it, but that's number one in my head. I'm reading Traction right now, which is a really good book. My fiance actually recommended it to me, about just business organization and building a cohesive, efficient business organization. So that's a really good one. Flags of Our Fathers was something that's always been really important to me about the soldiers who raised the flag in Iwo Jima. That was always one that has always resonated with me throughout my years of just, continue to resilience and pushing yourself, because I'm a huge believer in positivity, huge believer in just pushing yourself, as much as possible in a healthy way. Mindset wise, to really see the good in everything that is happening.
Love that. Thank you. And as you were talking, and I was thinking about the fact that you launched your business about 2 years ago, which was right at the beginning of the onset of COVID. How did that affect your business? Because clearly you had to be resilient and you had to run this course and you had to stay engaged and keep your people. How did that work out?
It was scary. And it's wild because especially the way COVID hit, with the shutdowns, and it was very, very life-changing. I'm still, that's one of the things that, going back to I'm curious about now, is it's something that my dad's been doing a lot of talking on his YouTube channel. It's just the post-COVID world in terms of retail and shopping, but just for me, human-wise, because now my entire team is remote. Most people are here in Greenville, but I see them, in person in our office once or twice a month, typically. I'll have lunches with them and stuff like that, but it's wild. My brother-in-law works for an engineering firm, and now, when they hire new candidates, like part of what the candidate negotiates is I want to spend 3 days at home and 2 days in the office, which is wild. That was not even a thing when I was working in the corporate world. So that's been wild. But yeah, it was definitely scary, but I guess one, it played to our hand in our business because, a lot of companies were spending a lot less time in the field with users because of the pandemic. And we, put the safeguards in place to be able to do that and communicate with users and connect users with customers in a safe way during the pandemic. So that helped us get ahead in a lot of ways. And then also, I think it really helped, me get over the fear of starting a business, as crazy as it sounds, because, when the biggest thing that stopped me from starting earlier was fear. I mean, that was it, straight up. I was scared. I was just like, how am I going to make money? How am I going to, pay for health insurance? How am I going to, I just bought a house in March. So wild stuff. But once I quit, literally the Monday after when I started full time officially with TestedHQ, that fear just turned into like hunger. I was like, okay, like I got to get this done now. Like it's time to go. And so as crazy as the pandemic world was at the time, like it was just kind of keep your head down and go and try to think of creative ways to deliver your results and deliver your product to your customers with the challenges that COVID presented in a lot of ways.
So you sort of channeled that fear into more of excitement or hunger or innovation. How can I do this uniquely and specifically to this time that we're living in and help my customers as they're addressing their own fears and their own issues? And you started connecting with people and it started working for you, apparently.
For sure. I mean, it's wild to me. I mean, I sat down with so many entrepreneurs the summer before I graduated officially and went back, and so many. And I was just, I was so afraid to start a business. And ultimately, like I said, I decided to go back to the corporate world for another year-ish. And actually, Ryan Stearns, I sat down with him and we were at a bar and I asked him, I was like, because he had worked at the same company I had and had a similar, path to his career. His company started as a side hustle, then he did it full time. And I asked him, I was like, what gave you the confidence? Like, what helped you get over the fear to do the jump? And he told me, he's like, well, I have work experience. I have an MBA. Like, if it doesn't work out, I'll just go get a job. Yeah. And that's something that's kept me grounded this entire time because no matter what happens, it's not like, my life's over at that point. It's just, but I would have felt cheated for myself if I wouldn't have taken the opportunity when the opportunity was there to go after and try it.
Absolutely. And what is it that you hope your customers say about you?
Oh man, so many good things, hopefully. But I think the number one thing is that we really help them solve their problem. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about solving people's problems, really helping people. I mean, that's whenever in elementary school, like whenever people ask me, like, what did I want to do when I grow up? I told people I want to help people. Like, love it. That's what I want to do. I want to help people. So what I look for is authentically and actually solving somebody's problem in a way that they might not have been thinking before, in a way they might not have had the resources to do themselves. That's what I want to be known for, is solving people's problems and helping people kind of, develop a better product or become a better person or, become a more positive person. That's what I care about in terms of what I want customers to think about with TestedHQ.
And here's a very holistic approach there. It's not just about you want to help solve their business problems, but you hope that you have relationships and you make their lives easier, even in a bigger way by bringing in solutions and innovations.
For sure.
What should I have asked you in this interview, but I did not?
I mean, these are a lot of great questions. We got on pretty much like all the things that I love talking about. I don't know if there's much. I mean, touched on the Clemson stuff. Like, I mean, that was such an impactful, like the classmates I met in there and the people who, not just the professors who pushed me, but my classmates who pushed me. I'm eternally grateful for those moments. I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, the health journey is a big thing for me. That was something that really put my whole life into perspective and where I'm at now and what continues to drive me. I mean, I can't think of anything really. I
do really appreciate you touching on the health journey. I just remembered that about you and how you really came through and had to be strong and move on. And so I just want to thank you for being with me. And I also want to congratulate you on the upcoming wedding this fall.
Thank you.
It's very exciting and so many good things happening. I know you're thrilled with the course of things right now. And also, we are so proud of you at the Clemson MBA. So thank you for spending time with me today.
I appreciate it. I, would not have rather been anywhere else. This has been wonderful.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Gail.